Look at the cover. A guy in chef whites, arms crossed, knife in hand, looking at you like he's daring you to pick up the book. Most people see that cover, read the title, Kitchen Confidential, and put it right back down. Not for me, I don't cook. I don't even like cooking shows. I had those thoughts when I was choosing my next book. I knew I wanted to read something by Anthony, but I was drawn towards A Cook's Tour, which is about a journey around the world searching for the perfect meal. I like to travel, I like to eat, so I thought that would suit me best. But when they didn't have it in stock and the collection time was too far away for me to take it with me on holiday, I decided to settle on Kitchen Confidential. Not because I wanted to know more about how to cook, but I thought it might give me more context about the author for when I do get the chance to read the book I really did want. And after just reading the first chapter, I knew this would become one of my new favourite reads. That reaction is exactly why this book has quietly outlasted almost every other book about food ever written, because it was never really about food. It's about what happens to a person who throws away a normal life to chase something that consumes them completely. And it was written 25 years ago by a man most of his readers today have never seen alive. This is why you should read Kitchen Confidential, even if you've never cooked a meal in your life. Before he was a TV face wandering through Vietnamese noodle stands and Congolese jungle camps, Anthony Bourdain was a 45-year-old line cook nobody had ever heard of. He'd spent almost 3 decades bouncing between kitchens in New York, Provincetown and the south of France. Then, almost by accident, an essay he wrote for The New Yorker about grimy realities of restaurant kitchens caught fire. A publisher called, and a few months later his book existed. It sold modestly at first. Then word of mouth did what word of mouth does. Cooks passed it to other cooks. Those cooks' friends who have never set foot in a professional kitchen started reading it too. Then it became required reading in culinary schools, on essential non-fiction lists, and in books that changed how I see work threads that have nothing to do with cooking at all. So here's the actual question worth asking. Why has a memoir about restaurant kitchens remained one of the most recommended books for people who don't cook, don't want to cook, and have zero interest in fine dining? Here's the trick. The book pulls on you almost immediately. You think you're reading about knives and sauces, you're actually reading about what it's like to work somewhere that demands everything you have and gives you back a strange, addictive pride in return. Bourdain describes the professional kitchen less like a restaurant and more like a small, brutal army. A place with its own hierarchy, its own rules, its own code of honor that has nothing to do with the law of the outside world. You show up on time no matter what happened the night before, you don't complain, you don't call in sick unless there's blood involved, and in exchange, you get something that's hard to find almost anywhere in modern work. Total unambiguous clarity about whether you did your job well. That's not a restaurant idea, that's a universal one. Anyone who's ever worked a warehouse floor, a trading desk, an ER, a kitchen of any kind, anyone who's ever belonged to a crew instead of just a company, recognizes this immediately. Bourdain isn't selling you a career, he's describing what it feels like to be owned, in a good way, by your work. One of the funniest, sharpest choices in the book is how Bourdain explains his own origin. He doesn't claim to some pure, romantic passion for cooking. He describes tasting his first raw oyster on a fishing boat off the French coast as a sulking, spiteful 9-year-old, mostly trying to outdo his parents and gross out his little brother. He got hooked not on love, but on the discovery that food could shock, impress, and control a room. That single, oddly petty motivation ends up explaining almost everything that follows. The drugs, the chaos, the constant chasing of the next sensation, the eventual need to write it all down. It's not a tidy character arc, it's messier and more honest than that, and it's exactly why it doesn't feel like every other memoir about finding your calling. Bourdain is upfront that his calling found him through spite, boredom, and hunger for the next intense thing. Most people never admit that's how their ambition actually starts. Part of why this book still reads like it was written last year is the voice. Fast, profane, allergic to sentimentality, but somehow never cynical underneath it. He'll describe a horrifying kitchen accident and a Michelin-star meal in the same breath, with the same dry disbelief at his own life. He's also brutally honest about his own failures in a way memoirists rarely are. He admits to years of addiction, to stealing from employers, to running restaurants to the ground, to being on his own account, a genuinely difficult person to work for. He doesn't excuse any of it. He also doesn't wallow in it. That tone, confession without self-pity, humour without deflection, it's rare and it's a big part of why the book has aged so much better than most gritty industry expose writing from the same era. Buried in the chaos is something close to an ethics of craftsmanship. Bourdain has strong, oddly moving opinions about things that sound trivial out of context. Keeping your workstation clean, never blaming a co-worker, learning the language of the people you work alongside, never taking a bribe from a supplier even when everyone else does, he turns a line cook's tidy prep station into a small metaphor for a tidy mind, and a chef's refusal to cut corners into a stand-in for basic personal integrity. None of this requires you to care about food. It requires you to have ever wanted to be good at something and to have wondered what that actually costs. Bourdain's answer, stated over and over in different disguises throughout this book, is that competence is a form of honesty, and cutting corners is a form of lying. To your customers, your crew, and yourself. The book isn't structured like a normal narrative, and that's deliberate. It moves the way memories move, jumping between decades, characters, disasters, because the actual subject isn't Bourdain's career timeline. It's the people who passed through it. The mentors who terrified him into competence, the addicts, immigrants, misfits, and lifers who make up what he calls industry's real workforce, the ones customers never see and rarely think about. He treats them with a strange mix of dark comedy and genuine respect, and by the end, you realise you've been reading a character study of dozens of people disguised as a story about food. So it turns out the book was never really about kitchens. It's about what happens when a person becomes obsessed with getting something right. It's about the strange dignity people find in hard, unglamorous work that nobody applauds. It's about a hidden subculture running underneath the restaurant you walk past today, full of people with their own luggage, their own scars, their own code. And it's about a man who spent 30 years in that world, made a lot of mistakes, hurt people, nearly wrecked himself, and somehow came out on the other side able to write about it all with more humour and honesty than most people manage writing about their good days. You don't need to know what Béarnaise sauce is, read it, and you'll understand why so many people who have never picked up a knife in their life still call this one of their favourite books.
Open your mind, get up off the couch, move.